We've got keyboards in computing lessons. Surely we don't need pens.
Hello and welcome back to another At the Chalk Face. And today we're talking about something which, on the face of it, might not seem too computer sciencey, and that's the importance of handwriting. Oh, now we're going to get into this, but I need to start, Dave. I can't stand handwriting, but this makes for a really interesting discussion point. Obviously, why have I ended up like that? What's the problems with that? Does it have a place in computer science? And this comes off the back of an article read by Alex Quigley called "Learning by Hand." So, handwriting, then, Dave. I'm going to hand over you to get started. No place for it in computer science. We've got keyboards. We don't need it. AI is doing all our writing for us anyway. Leave it to English. Episode done. Dave.
Yeah, well, there is a little bit of that in me, in the sense that in computing lessons, it's a real opportunity to use computers, right? And they don't get an awful lot of time on computers in schools. I mean, some of them do have, bring your own device initiatives and those kinds of things. So maybe there's more opportunities for students to be using devices in school. But, on the whole, they don't have an awful lot of time in front of computers in school. Most of the time, they are in front of exercise books and other materials in other subjects. And dare I say, it kind of feels like to me at the moment that computing is becoming a bit of a dirty word. All this business about phones in school, social media, and the impact of technology on children. It kind of feels to me like technology is becoming a real dirty word. And this idea that students could be using a screen and a keyboard, oh, shock, horror. What are we doing to our young people? No, they should all be engaged in reading for pleasure and books and handwriting and using pens and paper, because if it was good enough for us, it's good enough for them. Look how we're damaging society. So I've kind of gone off on one a little bit, but I just feel like to suggest that students could be using a keyboard to do writing has become frowned upon.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, look, I joked about it at the start there. I said I'm a huge keyboard person, and that's an evolution of obviously the journey that I've been on as a person. But I think there's a difference. So, I mean, I remember back at school doing those exams, and even then, obviously, fountain pen. Loved a fountain pen. God, I think kids use those anymore. You'd use them in all your lessons. We maybe had one computer room. We never really did anything on computers. Yes, we didn't have a computing lesson, so to speak. And I remember getting to the exams, and if it was a 2-hour exam writing essays, my hand would hurt. And I was using computers back then, and I've carried on in every job, in my personal life, and obviously I've got so used to it. What has happened is obviously I do less and less handwriting. My handwriting is appalling, and the small times of the year when I do have to do handwriting, signing a card to my beloved parents, I'm ever so careful with it.
Is it necessary, Craig? I need to kind of go there. In 2026, is handwriting necessary? Let's just think about it. Think about your daily life, how you actually operate on a day-to-day basis. What is your need for handwriting?
Sure. So I was going to go there next with an educational lens, but okay, let's take it out of that. I mean, as an adult operating in society, how often do I use handwriting?
Filling in forms?
Not even that. They're all online now, aren't they? I tell you when it is. It's when I write a signature, and
wow,
is about it. The last time I probably wrote something by hand was Christmas cards, or when my wonderful father sent me some forms, some executor will forms. It's like, these have got to be written with a wet signature. I was like, oh, old fashioned, shove it in the post. Seriously, that's it. The only other time I do it is if I'm scribbling a couple of post-it notes for my monitor. These are my two immediate to do that. I still love a post-it note, but you're
Sure.
right. I don't. But where I was going and where I think there is merit in this, and I'm really interested in your opinion,
Mm.
is although I was a huge advocate of the keyboard, and obviously I've gone more that way as my handwriting's got worse, and obviously I've compounded it. I still feel I'm processing the information. I'm having to think about what I'm typing. That learning is going through. Now, this article makes a really valid point. I'm sure we'll get into this, how that link is much stronger if you're forced to slow down and do it by hand. But I'm still doing it. I'm thinking, I'm having to rewrite it, read it. I think what's changed now and why I really agree with not losing this is now with AI, even that link is being removed. So I'm willing to accept that the cognitive load, the links that are being formed in the brain are less strong if you're typing on computer than if you're writing by hand. But I'm like, no, I'm much more productive that way. That's the way I've always done it. I'm not going to suddenly go back to handwriting. But now we've got AI, and it's so easy to skip even that process. And I think that for me is where there's a tipping point. So as teachers, sure, I'm not going to be doing it in every life. I'm not suddenly going to come off this video and go, ooh, going to start handwriting everything. It's not going to happen, Dave. But as teachers, should we be finding some way to bring this in? And is there educational benefit to it? I think with the ever increasing use of AI, I have to agree. I think it's not only valid, I think it's probably necessary. And I'm sure we'll get onto it. We've actually got a very strong way, and we've had it for years in Craig and Dave, where we enforce handwriting for this purpose of the extra cognitive load. So, yeah, maybe you want to talk about some of that. So, I do agree, but for that reason, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm being deliberately provocative,
I
right?
know you are.
I'm putting a challenge out there so that everybody can sort of reflect on that a little bit and think, so what really is the purpose of handwriting? And I completely agree with you that handwriting in our day-to-day lives has certainly diminished. There is less need for it. I just think we have to be honest about that. But then there's another aspect of our lives, which is learning. And if learning can be enhanced through a process, then we should take that process seriously. And of course, the process we're talking about today is handwriting. And so it has been shown that handwriting has a positive impact on the learning process, partly because it slows you down. It encourages you to think more carefully because you can't write as quickly as you can type. I mean, most people can't anyway. And of course, you can always backspace and undo and all those other things, but just slowing that process down through handwriting has a real positive effect on so many things. And I don't know about you, Craig. This is another one where I could say, "Oh, spelling doesn't matter," but it it really annoys me actually when I see words not spelt correctly. It's one of my big bugbears. I was really proud of the fact that when I was at school, I was always a good speller. I always knew the difference between two, and two, there and there, and whatnot. Um, and I don't quite know how I ever really learnt that, to be honest, but I was very proud of it. And of course, now in the age of keyboards and spell checkers and autocorrect, I'm finding myself accidentally using the wrong word, and I don't know why or how, and then the autocorrect is just correcting it for me, and I feel like it's sort of de-skilling me a little bit. So there's the whole spelling thing, the comprehension thing, the thinking thing by slowing down, and just studies show that you remember more if you're writing it down. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. I think the article was talking about embodied cognition, wasn't it? That the actual natural act of using your hand and the connections, the physical movements, the forming of the letters, let alone you already mentioned the slowing down of the process. So you've got more processing time. Well, we could go into it, but there's great articles. The proof is there that the learning is deeper and easier and better to reinforce when you handwrite something. I'm curious though, because I touched on it and everything you said is great, but what do you think of the point I made about, so for me, I think the switch, because none of this would convince me now not to learn by typing. But I think for me as a teacher, the switch has become with the AI element. Now it's so much easier for students not even to do that less effective process of thinking and typing through the hands, that I almost think it's even more important now that we get them to do it like that. Because even if they then type the answer up on AI and then have to write it all, it's going through their brain, out through their hand onto the paper. So, I'm curious. I'm sure you agree with that. But I'm curious on your thoughts on that, really, because things have changed, haven't they?
Yeah, they're changing at such a rapid pace at the moment, and I do agree with you. And I'm using AI now so much to repurpose information. I will have some ideas and some thoughts, and I'll give them to AI, and I'll say, "Can you repurpose this? Can you make it, more suitable for teachers or whatever it happens to be?" And the outputs are fantastic. I mean, sometimes you can spot it's definitely an AI approach, and maybe they haven't picked up on quite what was important to me and in the repurposing process. And I've had to then go back and reframe things slightly so that I haven't lost the point that I was trying to make. Because, of course, these AI systems don't understand what it is they're churning out. But I've been so impressed with what you can actually do with AI that it is taking away some of that deep thinking process for me. It's just so easy now to just give it a few thoughts and let it churn it out and run with it. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I'd like to say it's accelerating the learning process. It's not, is it? It's at risk of diminishing the learning process. I think.
I think this is the danger, isn't it? I mean, and we're going to be constantly fighting against this. We'd be lying if we said we weren't using AI in our daily lives and for our jobs. Of course, we are. Everyone is, but we're using it to enhance and support creativity, to spark ideas, to use as a springboard, a sounding bat, and all these sorts of things. And that's okay. What we're talking about here is the actual initial learning of those skills. So I think we're both in agreement, and I'm sure a lot of our audience are. Nothing wrong with AI. It's a tool, just like the internet, and before that, the library, and before that, the pen and paper from the chalkboard and the quill. Here we are. It's there. But there is something about that handwriting approach, and this article really sums up. And I think we're broadly in agreement that schools should deliberately try and preserve handwriting. In all ages, not just in primary, in all subjects, not just English, and even alongside or with technology. So I have a leading question, Dave. So having read this article, do you think we should suddenly change the Craig and Dave philosophy or what we do with our resources to incorporate handwriting? Or is this something maybe we've been supporting and advocating for a very long time? And if so, how do we do that within our resources, Dave? I'm being facetious because it is lovely, isn't it, when we see an article like this and we're like, oh, look what all the research says. And we don't have to respond to that to be in line. We've actually been in line with this from, I want to say, day one. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. You teed that one up for me beautifully. I'm going to drive it down the
You
fairway.
are welcome.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. At Craig and Dave, this is something that we've been advocating for at the beginning of when we changed the way we taught back in 2015. So what we do is we say to our students that we want them to watch a video ahead of the lesson to prepare them for the lesson. And in that video, within less than 12 minutes, we impart the knowledge that they require. And so we talk them through whatever it is that they're learning. We show them visual aids and some text and bullet points and things like that. The classic slideshow. But then crucially at GCSE, we have a summary slide at the end with a take notes icon. And that blue take notes icon is the signal to students that they should pause the video at that point and they should copy what they see on the screen down into an exercise book. Now, we advocate using the Cornell note taking method, and we won't go into that now. That's another video. But in essence, they're going to start by copying what they see on the screen. And people would say, but that's so passive. What are they really getting out of that? Isn't copying pointless? Didn't we stop doing that years and years ago because it was ineffective? Well, no, it's a very small part of a bigger process, but it's a very important part because it does all the things we've already talked about, slowing things down, having to think about things. Just the art of copying means that you have to read, you have to then kind of get that through your brain and back out through your hand in order to copy it down. And then when they get into the lessons, they're going to then look at those notes. So it goes back in through their eyes, through their brain, and back out through their hands when they complete activities, which may or may not be done on the computer. But we would call that our reinforcement loop. This idea that you have to go through your eyes because you're seeing something on a screen, through your brain, out through your hands, handwritten notes, and then back through your eyes, reading your own notes, through your brain, back out through your hands in order to complete an activity. So you see that the handwriting is a crucial part of the process. Could they do it on a computer? Yes. Some teachers take out the handwriting element and just get their students to do that on the computer. I think they're missing something. That's not our intention. Don't do it that way. Force the students to do the handwriting process because you get all the educational benefits that Alex Quigley has already outlined in his article by doing that. But that's GCSE, Craig. We've got something very similar going on at A level, but perhaps you'd like to just outline, sort of what the similarities and differences are.
Yeah, well, I was about to touch on that. So I was going to say my A-level students used to be infuriated because, of course, they'd have laptops and, oh, yeah, I can just get YouTube and summarize the script. And, oh, if you want, I'll print it and stick it in the exercise book. No, you're missing the point. And they would loathe me sometimes that I'd make them handwrite the notes. Then, of course, we'd explain it. So do we do this at A level? Because we don't have the take notes icon. Well, the only reason we don't have the take notes icon in our flipped learning videos at A level is we're trying to remove a bit of scaffolding and prepare them for the next level of study, where they'll possibly be sat in a lecture theatre for an hour listening to someone. This is where we go, yeah, and I'll just press play on my laptop and let the software take some AI notes and summarize them. Okay, fine, but we're doing our best, okay? So we still have exactly the same process in essence. They watch some learning before the lesson. We want them to digest that and summarize it. We just don't provide the summary notes on a single slide with that deliberate take notes icon. We now leave it up to the A-level students to say, well, you've watched a 9-minute video. Take about a side of summary notes. We told you what those notes were at GCSE. Now we're wanting you to infer it. So really, it's exactly the same process. And we carry that on at A level. And I know we said we weren't going to get into the whole Cornell note-taking method, and I won't. But I just point out that that method enforces this loop that Dave was talking about more than once. Because as Dave said, you're watching through the eyes, process through your hand, take the notes. The second part of Cornell is then to reread your notes back through your eyes and turn those notes, brain, into questions and write them out in the Cornell notes. You provide a column for it. So they do this cyclic process twice, slowed down, thought about all the benefits that the study says handwriting reinforces before you bring it to the lesson. And quite possibly, and normally then, it will go through the notes, eyes, brain, and now this time out through the keyboard and onto the computer, typically. Not always, but typically. But that's fine. We've gone through the slope 3 times. So, yeah, we've been doing it for ages. We don't say stop at A level. Yes, we tell them they still have to give handwritten notes, and we stick by the reasons why. Do some of them dislike us for it? Yes. Would I like to have done it? No. But we're the teachers and we know best.
And, I'm just thinking at the moment about all the ways in which teachers sort of subvert our intentions with these videos. There are also teachers out there that plug our videos into other software platforms because they say, oh, just watching the video is so passive, my students aren't really learning. And so what they decide to do is put it into these platforms that sort of artificially pauses the video at certain points through the video and asks them questions, multiple choice questions or text box type questions, whatever. And you think, oh, that's great, because now I know that the students have watched the video all the way through because they have to have filled in the text boxes, done the multiple choice quiz, whatever it happens to be. in order to get through to the end of the video. But what they don't realize or recognize is that the students aren't really learning by just doing that one shot process. What the students are doing is getting to the end of the video. That's not really the point. So, if you get your students to do their notes on a keyboard online, if you get your students to not make any notes at all because they just got little quiz questions all the way through the video, you got to really sort of question, what is the learning value in that? What are they really getting out of it? And we would strongly advocate, put the handwriting back in. If they've watched the video all the way through, because even if they haven't, they've at least spent some time handwriting these notes. But you are right, Craig. Look, we're living in an age now where could they extract the transcript from YouTube, stick it through AI, and get the notes out the other end? Yes, they could. They're not going to get the same notes that we've got on our take note slide, so it'd be pretty easy to spot, I would suggest to teachers. And we've thought carefully about what are the really important things that students need to know for examinations, and no AI tool is going to be able to do that, you know, with quite the same finesse. So yeah, get the handwriting back in there. I mean, we're not
Perfect.
suggesting you need to do it all the time in lessons. We do it in preparation for every lesson, and that's going to be enough.
Right. Well, I guess, yeah, that's it. I mean, handwriting, still relevant, still important, all ages and computer science. Would I do it? No, but this is a case of do what I say and not as I do, but I can back it up with all the pedagogy, all the teaching, and all the educational reasons why students should be doing it. Thank you very much. We'll see you all again next week.